All right, so today I'm going to show you the most DIY friendly way to roughen a shower valve. I'm going to go over all the tools and materials that you need, and the one tool that you will not need is a blowtorch. So the shower trim that we chose is this Moen Lindor, and there's two reasons we chose it. One, it's pretty inexpensive for the quality of the trim it is, and it's super easy to install. So here are all of the tools and materials that you're going to need for this job. I am going to link all of it down in the description below with how many of those things you need in order to make this as simple as possible for you to just go to the store and shop it. We did buy all of this from Lowe's to make things easier for you. So the first thing we're going to do is deal with our valve. Typically what you would see is people just solder on connections onto this. But again, I'm going to try to avoid soldering because my mindset here is that we're dealing with people that don't really have that experience. And if you don't have that experience soldering, it could be pretty hard and you could mess it up pretty easily. So here's the way to do it where you don't mess it up. So what we're going to use is these female adapters that will screw onto our ports here. And we have 3 outlets. So we have your hot and cold and your shower outlet. So we will need 3 of these adapters. Also, we're going to need some Teflon tape and we're going to need some pipe dope. Let's do it. All right, so when you're tightening this, all you want to make sure is you tighten it as hard as you can. Honestly, as long as you're seeing that threaded Teflon tape is getting pushed out and you're seeing your pipe dope kind of ooze out of there, this will be fine. But I just like to crank on it as hard as you can. And I do prefer to do it in hand versus trying to do it on here because then it kind of bends the screws and does things like that. So now that this is done, we're going to install it right in the center and then work our way down. So I know you guys are going to be asking, where do I install this block in terms of depth in order to make this work? So for this valve, the Moen valve, all you have to do, in my experience, is just put on the back of the wall. So basically flush with the back of those 2x4s. So now what we're going to do is use these 2 90-degree angles to come off of here and then shoot down to our existing copper pipes. We're going to use this PEX tubing. Hot is on the left side, cold is on the right side in order to actually color coordinate this whole thing. And the reason we're going with PEX, it's just so easy to install this stuff and you'll see why. So when you're doing this, first piece, I want it to go right here. And you see how there's basically this area right there. I'm going to come in here and then get myself a pretty rough measurement to there. And I'm going to kind of go off of here because I want to staple this to the wall. So I want it to be as close as I can, but not actually touching it because I want to be able to work with this stuff. So I'm going to go 2 1/4 for this little piece. And then on this side, I'm going to need about 3 inches on this side. So 2 1/4 and 3 inches. All right, so let me explain how these work. So this is just a compression fitting. And what you want to see is at least 1/8 of an inch overlap like this. You don't want to line it up perfectly like this because you don't really know if it's like this or like that or whatever. So you want to come in about 1/8 of an inch. Then we'll go in your fitting like that. And then you press this down. If you are having a little bit of trouble right here because this just slides, especially if you're working like upside down, this might slide. What is helpful is to grab your channel locks and just give it a little bit of a squeeze here, and then that will hold for you. And then that's still okay for when you're going to like use the big pliers to squeeze them together. So that's a little trick to hold these in as you're getting stuff set up to actually press it in. So now we're at a point where we have to connect these fittings to our old existing pipes. And the method that I'm going to use is our sharkbite connectors. Again, I want to avoid soldering at all costs on this install video because a bad solder job is worse than a perfectly installed sharkbite. These things are great when installed correctly. So when we're measuring these cuts that we need to do here, we need to measure from here, the top, right there, I'm gonna hold it right there, to this line right here on the shark bite. So you see that we are at 31 and a quarter. I'm actually going to cut it 32 because I want it to be a little bit longer so I can have room to staple it to the side. If you cut it perfect, there's no way you're going to staple this to the side because then it's going to kind of flex on it. So we're going to give it another like 3/4 of an inch on this side and same thing on this side in order to staple it to the side. Okay, so I have to press these two fittings and it's hard to get in here because it's kind of a little super tight right there. And also you don't want to be doing this on an angle. So what I'm going to do is just loosen these screws and take them out. I know somebody could probably say you could have done these at first and then squeezed it in. I like measuring this way most, when you kind of put it in there and you can measure everything out and then you have really nice tight measurements. And to me, that makes more sense. And it's really not that hard to just take these two screws. Then I have to add these little pipe clamps. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add them more towards the top right here versus at the bottom. I don't want to put too much flex on this joint where here this stuff is pretty durable. So I'm not that concerned about it. So the very last part that we have to do is install this drop ear. So this is your shower head and the shower head is going to go up here. The height of this really is your preference. If you're a short person, you can install short. If you're 6'8", you should be installing it higher. I prefer to install it about 80 inches, maybe like 81 inch, because I do like when the shower head's a little bit taller, especially if you're tiling all the way down to the ceiling, up to the ceiling. But I'm going to install this one at 80 inches. And then in terms of how far to set this block, I like it to make this flush with my wood right here. And if you measure it, we have 1.1/8. So what I'm going to do is then grab this and set it at 1.1/8 right there. I'm going to put a mark right there, 1.1/8, make a mark. And then set this piece there and then do this on this side as well. And then just kind of put construction screws to set it. Last thing you have to do is get this plug in here. It has a rubber gasket on here so that when you put that in like this, it tightens up there so that you can turn the pressure on, meaning turn the water on, and you'll know that none of these connections are leaking. Also, what you want to do is that tool, the big pressure tool, comes with this little thing, and it has a go, so 1/2 inch go. And what you want to do is just go through and then check all of your connections here to make sure that they pass. Basically, it's checking to see if the radius squeezed enough in order, or diameter, whatever, squeezed enough to actually be passed. And that's how you can check to see if you missed a joint before you go ahead and turn it on. But either way, once you turn the water on, you'll know for sure that you missed a joint because it'll be messy. But all right, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Next, I'm going to show you how to waterproof this entire shower. See you soon.